Welcome in, everybody, to the Big Ten Show. I am your host, Adam Carriker, and I have a special guest with me today. Before I officially bring him in, I want to give a shout out to our good friends at bookmaker.eu. Great parlays, teasers, straight bets, and more. Easy ways to deposit with huge bonuses and easy payouts at bookmaker.eu. Tweet at bookmaker_EU when you sign up, and they will get you $100 free, a $100 free bet just for signing up. Bookmaker.eu. Also, make sure you see what our friends at the Jacobson Seed Company are all about. Your healthy hybrid advantage. Farmers, thanks for watching the Big Ten Show, but we have to give you more than just great Big Ten coverage. We can help you with your fields. Go to jacobsonseed.com. Jacobson Seed Company, your healthy hybrid advantage. All right, today I am joined by a special guest, a man who's trying to keep the streets of Ann Arbor safe because it's pandemonium out there. All right, this guy is a former American football offensive lineman. All right, he played college football as an offensive guard at a very proud university known as Michigan from 1994 to 1996. He's the host of the Winged Helmet Show, Mr. Thomas Guynes. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, what's going on, good brother? How are you?
Dude, life is great. All right, you're part of law enforcement. People are,
Mhm.
shall we say, celebrating in Ann Arbor right now. So how's that going for you trying to keep the streets safe, so to speak?
Everything's going pretty well right now. A lot of our partners, a lot of our law enforcement partners from University Police, Ann Arbor Police. I work for the sheriff's office here, so everybody's kind of been applying a little bit of mutual aid. Kind of the one big thing that's helped out a little bit. We had some snow overnight, so this kind of slowed some of the festivities down. But overall, right now, everything for the most part has been relatively in a celebratory fashion and pretty orderly thus far. So we're hoping that we continue to represent the university in the light that it wants to be represented in, should be represented in, and the proud history that we have. And let's go out here and have that good, clean fun and keep the shenanigans to a minimum. Obviously, we're going to have some of those outliers that want to test the water, so to speak, and obviously they will be dealt with in a humane fashion, if you will. But
Humane.
other
I
than
like
that,
that.
man, the student body has done a really good job. We have some big events coming up this Saturday when the team comes back over at Chrysler Arena, so that's going to be a great time there. But right now it's business as usual, and it's what you expect any large university to be going through after winning a national championship in any sport.
All right, man. Michigan finishes 15-0. They win the national championship. They beat the Huskies of Washington 34-13. I just want to talk briefly about this and get your thoughts on this game
Mhm.
because Michigan jumps out to a quick 14-0 lead. Donovan
Right.
Edwards over 100 yards rushing on just 6 carries, 17.3 yards per carry. Two early TD runs puts the Wolverines up. Michigan bullies Washington. They had more rush yards, 303,
Right.
than Washington had total yards, 301. They also outscored the Huskies 14-0 in the fourth quarter. They outscored Washington in the first and fourth quarter combined 28-3. All right,
Mhm.
talk to me about what Jim Harbaugh has built up there in Michigan, why he's been so successful, and what this team's all about.
I think the first thing that Coach Harbaugh has done, he's done an exemplary job of building his assistant coaching staff. He's went out and found some young guns, some former players, some guys I actually coached. Um, because of that youth and their ability to relate to these young men, i.e., once they get there, and again along the recruiting trail, I think that has paid huge dividends for us. And then just the overall development that has taken place right now. We go out, we get really good kids, right? We have great assistant coaches, but just the character of the young men that we go out and get speaks volumes. I looked back at the Rose Bowl when we got ready to play Alabama, and it caused me some pause just based off of Alabama's overall athleticism. Not whether or not, were they the better team, but I just looked at the athletes. And again, maybe I was a little bit swayed just based off of the history and the pedigree of the Tide. But when I went out and rewatched that game and I saw the cohesiveness that the Michigan Wolverines brought to the table, we beat Alabama, maybe not because we had the best athletes, but we had the best overall team that day.
Mhm.
When you go back and you listen to a lot of these guys, you listen to a Blake or a JJ, some of our older offensive linemen that have been here for a while, these guys came back because they've they've been on the mountain They just didn't get to the mountaintop, i.e., the last 2 seasons in the CFP. So when those young men came back, they looked inward, they looked the man in the mirror in the eye, and they looked their teammates in the eye. And they came out here and said that we are going to play for each other. I am not here for selfish gains and or wants. I am here because of the fact that my brothers, my teammates, my university, my program deserves to win the national championship. And that is what has carried this team through this tumultuous year, actually, with all the outside shenanigans and chicanery that has taken place thus far, just with the whole coaching situation and NCAA things of that nature. But overall, the thing that to me is most beautiful is not the X's and O's, and it's not the play on the field. It's really just how these young men related to each other and laid it all on the line for each other. You know, some of these guys could have took a shot and went to the league, but instead they came back, risked possible injury, career ending injuries to come back and win a national championship with their brothers and for this university. So it was a beautiful thing to watch.
When I watch, and you mentioned JJ McCarthy coming back, and he's got that decision again right now going into
Right.
next year. You talked about Blake Corum, of course, he was coming off of the knee injury. Donovan
Correct.
Edwards is the guy that sticks out to me the most. He knew he
Yeah.
wasn't going to be the guy. He could have transferred to 99% of schools and been the guy, just like he will
Right.
probably be next year. Well, he will be next year. Okay, but it's interesting because when I think of Michigan football, take athleticism out of it. You make a great
Hmm.
point. I think they're just the best coached football team in America because I it's interesting you brought up recruiting and athleticism because I did a dive onto this. Okay, the last 4 years, Michigan does not rank in the top 5, does not rank in the
Hmm.
top 10. They have the 12th ranked recruiting class on average over the last 4 years.
Hmm.
Alabama, you mentioned them,
Right.
1.5. It's either 1 or 2 every year, them or Georgia. Okay,
Right.
Ohio State, who Michigan has bullied 3 years in a row, top 5
Right.
recruiting class every year. Okay, and right now they're the only school in the Big Ten. Okay, well, there's one other school in the Big Ten with a 5-star player, but Ohio State has 5 5-star players. The rest of the Big Ten combined, and this Michigan is not one of them, has
Hmm.
0. So I'm curious to see how that plays out going forward. But here's the deal, and Ohio State's average recruiting class ranking over the past 4 years is 3.75, so between third and fourth. Yet Michigan, 3-0 the last 3 years versus the Buckeyes, beat Alabama in the Rose Bowl and played god awful on special teams and still won.
Right.
Versus
Right.
the Buckeyes, Michigan averaged 235 rush yards a game, Ohio State 104. Wolverines over 6 yards per carry, the Buckeyes just over 3, a little over half. And in the second half of those games, Michigan has outscored the Buckeyes 72, those last 3 games, to
Hmm.
31, more than 2-1. What has Harbaugh done when it comes to coaching that makes it so good there? Okay, because you've talked about some of the other things, but
Right.
specifically at coaching football, what makes him so good at that?
I think because Jimmy is a big kid at heart. When you see him out there throwing the pill around with JJ on the interception side of things, he jumps in the pile, throws the buffs on. It's about the relatability that the student athlete has, not only to their position coach, but to their head coach. There's a lot of times that you'll see where I don't know how it is at Alabama. I'm only guessing. But if you take a Nick Saban to me does not come across as the most um, accessible coach as far as just being able to talk to him one on one, right? And to establish that real rapport. I think Jimmy, having been down at the building several times, and I'm watching how he interacts with the players. Jimmy has that. Jimmy has that open door policy. The other piece to it as well is I think that when we kind of got out of, well, this is how it's always been done here at Michigan, and started to embrace some of the newness of the game, if you will, that's when things really started to take off. You bring in a young coach in Sherrone Moore, D1 athlete, offensive lineman at Oklahoma, and just the job that he has done. You're coaching the offensive line, and as a former offensive lineman, I do a radio show here in Ann Arbor, bottom line with Thomas Guynes, where I'm specifically just talking O line play. And it's been years that I've been tough on the boys, just calling a spade, if you will. Even this year, we had our troubles, but the one thing that I'm most excited about was I started to see the gradual improvement. This is a group of guys that didn't come in the same class. We got 2 to 3 starters right now that were from the transfer portal, and so the time in which these 5 young men were together. Now you had Zinter out. Um, 53 comes in and does a great job at the right tackle spot. And so you kind of had some moving pieces here, but we eventually got the cohesiveness and the galvanization, if you will, from this offensive line. I've always been a big proponent, not just because I'm an offensive lineman. As so your offensive line goes, typically your team goes. At
Mhm.
Michigan, that is how it has always been. One of the reasons why I came here. Michigan was an O line school. They call Penn State linebacker U. I call the University of Michigan O line U. Because of that, and we've gotten back to the toughness and not wanting to play finesse football and understanding winning the war of attrition, winning up front. That third quarter, about midway through, you keep leaning on these guys. And I mean, you play, you know how it is on both sides of the ball. If the
Mhm.
defensive front seven is just giving it to the O line, and you see that opposing lineman looking up at the clock like, Jesus, how much more do we have to be out here?
Mhm.
How much more of this butt kicking do I have to take? We started to get back to that. You mentioned Ohio State. In years past, you would hear guys say, "Yeah, we're ready. We're going to win." Sometimes I just thought that was lip service. Right now, we really believe
Mhm.
that. I think beating Alabama, yeah, we're going to beat the SEC. We're going to beat Georgia. We're beat Bama, whatever the case may be. Again, I kind of thought we were whistling in a graveyard. Right now, I really feel like we believe that. And that's some of the biggest changes is that these guys truly believe in what it is that they're doing. They are students of their craft. They work their butts off. They conduct themselves in the right way. And so Jimmy has changed some of that culture. I left under Coach Carr. Um, a few years after that, we had Brady Hoke and we had Rich Rod, and we
Mhm.
had those iterations and some things that changed. I call some of that the Adidas era. We're getting out of the Adidas era
Yeah.
and Nike/Jumpman, and again, we are recultivating that culture that was down at Schembecker Hall and here in Ann Arbor, and getting us back to the right mindset of being tough up front, both sides of the ball, and then being explosive and being athletic enough to take the top off, or either to break those big runs. We're either going to hit you a triple or get you a home run. So these are things in which to bring this full circle to your question. Coach Harbaugh, I think the biggest thing that he has done is culture. It's not about X's and O's, right? If you're a smart guy, you understand football, you can coach.
Mhm.
But you also have to now be able to get into the psyche of these young men and get them really to buy into whatever it is that you're selling. And I believe these young men have jumped into the deep end of the pool with both feet and have fully immersed themselves in what it means to be a Michigan Wolverine. And right now, we are seeing the fruits of their labor.
So I have always said, offense puts butts in the seats, defense wins games, the trenches wins championships. I've been consistent
Mhm.
with that for years. Now,
Right.
I'm going to preface what I'm about to say by saying the NFL is a completely different game from a coaching perspective than college football.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Harbaugh is one of the few that's had success at both. Okay. You got
Right.
Jimmy Johnson, you got Carroll, but Harbaugh is one of the few. But you brought up Saban. And by the way, congrats to Saban on a phenomenal career.
Well
Okay.
deserved. Well
Yes,
deserved.
absolutely. Who's going to be the next Bama coach? I think we'll have that answer actually much sooner than later. But I bring him up again because when I went to the Rams, I played
Mhm.
with about 3 or 4 guys who had just come from the Dolphins, where Saban had been for a short period.
Right.
I don't use the H word often. They hated him. I don't know how else to
Yeah.
say it. They hated him. And obviously, he's come
Yeah.
back to college and done more than okay.
Right.
Okay. But you bring that back to Harbaugh, is what I'm saying. When
Mhm.
Harbaugh was first at Michigan, just the folks that I've talked to here and there, he was maybe a little more stern, not as relatable. And then the
Mhm.
past 2, 3, 4 years, he's been much looser, much more relatable. Players can approach him, everything that you talked about. Okay. And to me, players bought in to his toughness, his mentality. And Michigan is the toughest program in America right now with how they play on the field. And that's why they won the national title. All right, man. So we say all this. We're speaking wonderful things about Harbaugh.
Right.
Now, is he coming
Mhm.
back? And JJ McCarthy for that matter. But is Harbaugh coming back? Why should he or should he not? Same with JJ McCarthy.
Well, it's kind of a twofold answer. I mean, that's a tale of a double-sided coin, if you will.
Hmm.
Does Jimmy come back? Right, because I have a gravy spot right now. Everybody built him up as the Messiah in khakis, and
I love that. Yeah.
he's finally lived up to that billing, right? Um, but as you alluded to, he's had success in the NFL before, making it to a Super Bowl. Um, if he leaves, I'm good with that. And the reason why I'm good with that because that's the one box not left, not checked on his coaching resume
Hmm.
is winning a Super Bowl.
Yep.
Having been there as a player for a long time in the NFL, having coached, having had success in the NFL, but again, he's been to the mountain, just hasn't been to the mountaintop.
Hmm.
He's been to the mountaintop now as a collegiate coach. So does he make that jump? I don't know. If he does, I understand. If he stays, I get it. You like as he says, who has it better than us? Nobody. Like, why would you leave this situation right now with the iron being so hot? So, but I'm also comfortable if he leaves, if because of the fact of the great job that Coach Moore has done.
Hmm.
I feel like the program is in good hands. If the captain decided to leave the ship, I believe his XO, his second in command, is has shown he is more than ready to take the helm. Coach Moore has showed up in three of the biggest games when the lights were the hottest, the pressure was the highest,
Hmm.
the expectations were the highest, and also the detractors were the highest. This is during that time where the slings and arrows from the NCAA and Michigan haters were being hurled at us at record speeds. He kept his focus. He, along with Coach Harbaugh, because Coach Harbaugh is still in the building, kept the boys focused. And that to me is one of the biggest pieces of the coaching puzzle is when you're dealing with adversity, either internally or externally, as the leader of a program, how do you keep the masses of the program focused on a common goal? And that's what Coach Harbaugh and Coach Moore has done. So if Jimmy decides to leave, well deserved. I salute you. Coach Moore, as we have often said, which has always been a motto at Michigan, next man up. If that is in fact the case, and hopefully, Coach Moore will get the job. I'm, but this is another layer. If Jimmy leaves, how many other programs come after Coach Moore? That to me is the most intriguing question. How many zeros are they going to throw at Coach to try to lure him away?
Do you think he would
That
leave? It's a great situation here. And
it's a great,
while you
yeah.
ponder that,
Go
he's
ahead.
already coached half a season as a head coach this year. 3 games
Right,
to start, 3 games to end. He's 2-0
right,
versus top 10 teams, 1-0 versus
yeah,
Ohio State. I love the fact that the offensive coordinator at Michigan right now, currently as it stands, is the offensive line coach. Everything that I've
right.
already talked about verifies or justifies that. Here's the other thing, okay? Because we talked about the players at Michigan have bought into what Harbaugh, okay, has been trying to get them to buy into.
Mhm,
Well, if you bring in an outside guy, he's going to do things differently. He's going to
mhm,
change things. He's got to bring in his
mhm.
people. And even if he tries to do what Harbaugh's doing, Harbaugh's one of one. You can't mimic a guy who's one of one. Moore
Right,
already knows that. Moore's already had success. He's
right.
already done it. Why change it? You've got a guy right there and waiting. All right. Now that you've got your answer, I'm anxious to hear it.
I think he stays based off everything in what you just said. I
Hmm.
don't have to reinvent the wheel. I
Yeah.
know the kids, I know the program, I know my coaches, I know my strength conditioning coach, Coach Ben has done a fabulous job in the weight room. Um, but the other piece to this is, and you know it and I know it, bro, this is business. This is your opportunity to create generational wealth.
Hmm.
Nick Saban is by all means, if not close to a billionaire, based off of all of the things that he has going for him. Coach Moore, if hypothetically Bama says, "Hey, coach, we're going to throw you 20 million a year to come be our head coach," based off of your resume right now and everything that we've seen you do up close and personal, we think you'll be a great fit here at Bama. with all of the accoutrements that Bama has to offer,
Hmm.
does Coach Moore take that? I don't know. That's a tough sell, right? You throw me, and again, hypothetical numbers. I don't have any inside information that this is in fact a thing. I'm just, giving you a scenario. 20 mil to come to Bama. They're paying me 2.5 to stay at Michigan. Make it make sense. Again, it's business.
Hmm.
The selfish side of me would say, yeah, you stay because of all of the emotional entrapments that we have right now, all of the things the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into this, everything that you've gone through to build this up. Why would you leave it right now when you're on the mountaintop? But the business analytical side of me, as a family man, says, bro, you take the money. It's not like you're going to UTEP, and no disrespect to UTEP, but you're
Hmm.
still Power Five program, still going to have a highly touted program, and I'm getting 20 mil. Who wouldn't? So again, that's tough. Um, so to answer your question, yes, he stays because I don't know if any of these outside scenarios that I just kind of threw out there are even in the works. And I think he stays because now he truly gets to show his prowess as a head coach. Again, you did this in the three toughest games while pulling double duty, well, actually triple. O line coach, OC, and head coach. To
Hmm.
my knowledge, has never been done. And the other piece to it too is, as a black man, as a black former player at the University of Michigan, this will be the first time we ever had a black head coach,
Hmm.
which will be historic.
Yep.
Who wouldn't want to be that guy to to take that position at that point in
Hmm.
time. So, there's a lot of layers to this. This is going to be a really interesting read, especially over the next few weeks to see how things play out. So I'm really excited. I'm more excited than I am nervous because either way it goes, I still think we're sitting in a good space.
So here's my thoughts on Harbaugh. It's everything you already said, and Coach Moore. I don't have anything to add
Hmm.
to Coach Moore. But when it comes to Harbaugh, all right, he's built a monster at Michigan. Maybe he wants to get to the mountaintop in the NFL. What if that's
Right.
50-50? I can't help, and I want the best people in football to stay in college football. College football is better when Michigan is better. I miss Miami of Florida as much as I hated them
Yep.
growing up. I miss them
Yep.
being good. I'm kind of glad Texas is back, sort of, as a guy who grew up not rooting for them. Notre
Right.
Dame, Nebraska, for more than just the fact that I'm an alumni. College football
Right.
is better when those teams are better. So I selfishly want Harbaugh to stay. As a Nebraska guy, I also want him to get the hell out. Gives us a better chance to win. So there's two sides to that.
Roger that. Yep.
But I can't help but wonder if I'm Jim Harbaugh, okay, is this in the back of my mind? Because it has to be. Does he
Yep.
feel like there's a little bit of a witch hunt when it comes to the investigations? They've asked to see his phone, computer, text, emails. To my knowledge, they've found nothing. Okay, we're talking about cheeseburger gate, the analysts on the field, the sign stealing and everything. And I'm not saying everyone's a saint, okay? What I'm
Right. Right.
saying is, all right, everyone right now in college football, you're not supposed to be paying players to come play for you. Okay, it's supposed to be they're getting paid for name, image, and likeness, but everyone's
Right.
paying players to come under the gauze of NIL. That's what's really going on, and everyone knows it. So
Yes.
maybe Harbaugh feels like there's a bit of a witch hunt. Okay, and I can't help but wonder if that's a tiebreaker. And I'll just give my quick thoughts on JJ McCarthy. And then Lindsay, who's phenomenal with helping behind the show. This is when we should end the show. I'm going to let her edit whatever she wants because I got one more question for you
Yeah. Yeah. We
right
got to
after
get it.
this. When it
Got to
comes
get
to
it.
JJ McCarthy, I don't think he's had to show much because of the offense, because of the defense, because of what is around him. If I'm an
Mhm.
NFL scout, how do I evaluate this guy? I see his talent. I know he's a 5-star. I see he can run. I see his height. I see everything. But how do I evaluate this guy? In the biggest game of the year, his team won by 3 touchdowns, and he barely and he's a good quarterback, to be clear, but he
Yeah.
barely
No doubt.
completed over 50% of his passes and had only 140 yards passing with no TDs. If I'm JJ McCarthy, I come back just so I can raise my draft stock. Now,
There's no doubt.
here's my question for you. All right. How badly does 1997 Nebraska beat 97 Michigan?
How
You had to know
badly
that
does
was coming. You had to know that
how
was
bad
coming.
how badly does 1997 Nebraska beat
You like how I worded that?
1997
You like
Michigan?
how I worded that?
Hey, I'm here for it. Now,
Yeah.
I will say this out of respect for you and your show, because I'm a classy guy. I would just say that it would be a great game to watch. It was a highly um, two teams that were highly touted that went out there and they both did what they were supposed to do. I
Hmm.
was gone. I kind of feel like I was a part of it. I graduated in '96. I was with the Arizona Cardinals during that time frame. But having played with all of those guys, I definitely would put that team up against anyone
Hmm.
at this juncture. But at the same point in time, too, as a football guy, I'll give respect where respect is due. You guys had some ballers, bro. I
Yeah, you
played
guys
with
did
some
too.
of them.
Yep.
So, like I said, I'll just keep it respectful and say that it definitely would have been a beautiful thing to watch. Real quick, though, a couple of things. I 100% agree with you about JJ.
Hmm.
Um, JJ's mechanics have gotten better
Hmm.
as he has played, but to your point, because of the fact that we are such a run heavy program, as a quarterback, he didn't really get to show his wares. You look at a Penix in that Texas game, you're throwing 70-yard bombs and you're dropping it in the bucket. You
Hmm.
come and play us, you can't hit the broadside of a barn. So there's obviously going to be some difficulties as far as the evaluation sides goes for the NFL aspect of things. The other piece about Coach Harbaugh too is that I also want to look at it from the standpoint as the president of the university or your athletic director and War Manual. Jimmy, you're kind of a lightning rod. We love you to death, but you're talking this whole money thing, right? And you alluded to that. Hey,
Hmm.
the players should be getting, some profit sharing, all of that. 100% agree with it. I remember when Sega Genesis first came out with NCAA college football or whatever. I was on the game. It was like 75 at left tackle. I had Damon Denson. All of the guys, the races were right, the numbers were right. Only thing you didn't have were the names on the back, right?
Hmm.
We never saw a dime of that.
Yep.
But again, when you start messing with the church's money, people in the pulpit start getting upset.
Hmm.
And so, with that being said, if Jimmy was to leave, is that better for the university as a whole? Because it kind of it deflects some of that negative attention. Okay,
Hmm.
he's gone now. Next guy up, blah blah blah. We move forward. Or does the university's like, hey, this is our guy. He's not speaking out of church. He's speaking in the uh, benefit for the players. Why would we not want to support this individual right now? He's winning. Our kids are doing it the right way. Um, you know, as all large programs, you're going to stub your toe with certain individuals from time to time again, just off of behavioral sort of stuff with young men. But overall, we're doing it the right way. Kids are graduating. Kids are staying out of trouble. Kids are winning game. What more can you ask out of your head coach? So, with that being said, as I said before, there's layers to this book that's being written as we read, and I'm really excited to see how it ends.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you joining me. So when I originally wrote down, and you make a lot of phenomenal points, by the way. I love the pulpit. I love that. That's a great one. I might have to steal that in the future.
Hey, all yours, brother.
I appreciate it. When I originally wrote down the Nebraska question, I had who would win. I was like, no, 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 no.
Yeah,
We got to have some fun with this. I got to reword
yeah,
how I'm going to ask that question,
I'm here
dude.
for it.
Dude, it's not lost on me. Obviously, Charles Woodson, only major priority defensive player that's won the Heisman Trophy, beat out Peyton Manning, and you guys had the
Right,
toughest strength of schedule that year. That none of that stuff's
right.
lost on me. The only thing that I'm mad about is we didn't get the game because it probably would have
Yeah.
been within a score. So, all right, man, I appreciate you taking the time for joining me. And until
Thank you
next
for
time,
having me.
absolutely. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, be safe. We'll see you soon.
Be well, brother. Go blue.